We have just probably a minute or two.
Yeah. How many days have you been home?
I got home Saturday afternoon.
Okay.
So my boss told me was okay, me taking a few extra days, hang out with the family, relax. So
The sun that you got, is that from Florida?
yes, yeah, good. Tori, I wore sunscreen every single day, every time I went out.
You knew that was coming next. You knew that was
I
coming.
knew it was coming next. I wore sunscreen every time.
All right, I'm gonna need proof of that. I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know about that.
I didn't want to get lectured again, and yelled at.
I'm telling you, the sun in Florida is different. It might be like the same sun, but it hits you different.
Yeah. Yeah, and because it was hot out here. I mean, it was 90 degrees here today, but I went and trained outside. It's not the same. Like, I was saying not the same as Florida. Like, it's different.
It's different.
Yeah.
It's just like when I was in Utah, I was like, I'm fit. I've been training midday in Florida, right? Like I can handle anything. And I go out there and I climb like 4 flights of stairs to our rooms. And I'm like, where's the oxygen? I can't breathe in this state.
I know it.
So.
Man, it was, yeah, when John got to Orlando, Westbrooks.
Yeah.
He was out training with us first day. Man, 30 minutes in, he sat down. I thought he was going to die. Looked like he was on his deathbed.
Yeah, he hates Florida. It's awesome.
Yeah. Oh, terrible. So I'm sure we'll have some more people coming in. But we'll get started. I know there's a game on tonight. Obviously wasn't scheduled at the time that we scheduled this. But we'll get going. And I mean, penciled in an hour. If it's sooner, great. Things are rolling. It's up to you guys, kind of.
Well, the kids are down, so we're free the rest of the night.
They are down already?
They're down. They went down a little early tonight since we had a commitment. So we said, hey.
Awesome.
So it's tough. They're like, but it's still light outside. Yeah, we'll make it up to you tomorrow.
Okay.
So
that's the hardest part.
Yeah.
It's still light outside. So one second, I'm gonna turn this.
This room is so different.
All right, I can hear. All right, so there's a few of you on. Like I said, we'll record it, and I'm sure a number of people will be watching back later on. But for those of you that are on, I'm Jeremy Kiso. Chad won't be here tonight. He's working late with the Sturgis Rally going on. I'm sure Tony as well, but we'll have some stragglers come in. So tonight our guests are Chris and Tori Penso. Chris is originally a Region 2 guy, right?
That's right, Midwest at heart.
And Tori's a Florida girl, so, and she's back in Florida after being in Ohio. So, but no, Chris and Tori have they've got a great story, a long story. I know there's a huge part of their life, but it hasn't been always everything in their life. So they've climbed some mountains and made some strides. So I'm going to let them kind of just tell their story, how they got started, where they came from, where they got to, where they're at now, and how they did it while raising beautiful little girls. So,
awesome.
Feel free, it's all yours.
Awesome. Well, thank you, Jeremy. We're excited to be here. We're excited to connect with some South Dakotaans. Is that the right term? Those are South Dakotians? Yeah, sorry. Cool. Awesome. Well, thanks for having us on, guys. And we're thrilled to share a little bit about our story. Some people find it entertaining. Uh, but like you said, we've had, I think, peaks and valleys, and certainly hasn't been a straight line to success, if that's what you want to call it. It's definitely ebbs and flows. And like you said, soccer wasn't always our number one priority. Our priorities have shifted over time, and we've been lucky and blessed with things kind of working out the way they have. And I've been able to get back on the pitch since having the 3 girls. So it's been an interesting journey. I don't know if you want to start with yours.
Yeah, I mean,
very wee little.
I'm the old man here, so how far do you want me to go back? I mean, I started refereeing when I was 14. My club coach at the time asked any of us if we wanted to go to a referee clinic, and I said, sure, I'll make some money. So for 3 or 4 of us who went and took the weekend clinic. This was back when, they didn't tinker with the grade structure every year and change the course every year. And but I digress. So I took the entry-level course in '97 and became a grade 8 referee, and worked my way up over time and started going to youth regionals. My first one was in 2000 in Lawrence, Indiana. I never got to Sioux Falls, which everybody raves about. Everybody raved about Sioux Falls and the fields there. I never got to experience it. I went to Lawrence, I went to Michigan, I went to Wisconsin, I went to Iowa. I think I pretty much went everywhere but Sioux Falls, which at some point I'll have to venture over there.
Best part about Sioux Falls is we go from 90 to 50 in the same week. So
see,
great.
Growing up in Ohio, I'm used to that. So I like it. I miss my Midwestern weather. So grew up in Ohio, was born and raised up until I met her. Worked my way up in 2006, 2005. I took a break from soccer and joined the workforce in the real world as a state trooper in Ohio. Up until that time, I just always refereed and worked for my dad. We have a family pizza shop.
Really good pizza.
Really good pizza.
From the 1930s.
Yeah, 1936. So it started in the Great Depression. It's been around for a while. My family expects me to take it over at some point since I'm the 4th generation, but the problem is that's in Ohio and I live in Florida. So it's going to take some coaxing of my wife to make that happen. So we'll see. Was a state trooper for about 1.5 years, left the force because in that span I refereed 3 games and it was driving me nuts and I missed it. So I went back and it essentially, I guess, paid off. In 2008, I became a national referee. 2009, the very next year, I got invited to Major League Soccer. So this is my 12th year in Major League Soccer this year.
He's senior.
Yeah, I'm one of the old guys now at the ripe age of 38. So along the way, I met this beautiful young lady. Funny enough, I'll let her tell the story, but it started at youth regionals for Region 3 in 2009.
You know how not all referees have good games, right? Like, you got to have a couple bad ones to know what a good one feels like, right? So I was at youth regionals and I was a state referee, and I was like coming from Florida, and I was like, I'm hot stuff. Like, I'm a state referee. I'm like grade 6. My 2nd time at youth regionals. Like, I'm awesome. So they're like, yeah, let's put this awesome chick on this really tough game. And I didn't read the room. I didn't really understand what I was getting into. And it was 2 very competitive U16 boys games. If you've ever been to youth regionals, you know the 16 boys tend to be the hardest ones to manage a lot of times. So I was having one of those games where all the golf carts show up at your field, right? And they either show up for one of 2 reasons. One, you're doing really, really good, or 2, you're doing really, really bad, right? And so I'll let you guess which one it was, but I was in survival mode. I didn't read any of the signs of all the things I probably should have. And it was just survival mode. So the first 40 minutes were miserable. Everybody shows up. I'm just survival mode for the next 40. And then this guy comes sauntering across the field. Didn't know who he was, didn't know anything about him, but he has this like walk. And I'm like, oh no, who's this guy, right? He comes into the tent and I'm with my crew and we're just like, guys, how do we survive the next 40 minutes of this game? What do we need to do? What am I doing wrong? Like, do we need to just call more fouls? Or do we just need to start sending everybody off? Like, what do we do here, right? And he leans back on the table and he goes, so what's going on here? I'm like, what's going on here? This thing's terrible. It's bad. Do you have anything to help me for the next 40 minutes? Because if not really interested in like digesting this right now.
There was some vulgar language at the time.
It may or may not have said
that she won't repeat. But but like backstory is my first year in Major League Soccer, my first time in Region 3 mentoring referees. And I'm on that time slot I was off. So I'm just walking around the complex and I essentially hear all hell breaking loose. And I'm like, what is going on over there? So I walk by and Tori's in the middle and it's a complete, disaster.
It's not going well.
So as she says, I saunter over at halftime and,
Totally embarrassed, right? So fast forward the next 40 minutes, my assessor sets me down. He's like, look, this is, we talk through things. He goes, I'll let you talk it over with your mentor, and I'm like, my mentor? So all of a sudden I get assigned him as my mentor just because he walked past the field. So he sets me down on a grassy knoll and tries to talk to me. What do you think happened? What do you think went wrong? And the whole time I've got like steam coming out of my ears. And I'm not listening to anything because I just think he's arrogant and how dare he come. Anyway, long story short, I hated his guts for the first, few weeks I met him. I thought he was very arrogant. And if you know anything about Chris, he's anything but it. But on first impression, sometimes he can come off a little tough. So I wasn't a big fan of him. And then I even did my own side research and found out, I thought his name was Penso. That was Chris Penso. Come to find out it wasn't, it was Penso. But anyway, that is the story of how we met. Long story, fast forward. He invites me to a wedding in Ohio and we go, we have a blast and we have a good time.
I Facebook stalked her because back then the SRA of Florida was the infamous Joseph Mikna, right? And Joe put her registration in the system by her legal name, which is Mary, which she hates it. She goes by Tori because her middle name is Victoria. So everybody calls her Tori. So I see on the schedule Mary Hancock. So I'm scouring like the ends of the internet trying to find Mary Hancock. And I can't find her because we split ways after the tournament. I really never saw her after last night. I didn't have any information. I didn't know anything really about her other than I saw her in this game and I kind of like her. So I'm like scouring. Finally, I find a Victoria Hancock on Facebook and it's her. So I sent her a friend request and she lets it sit for like a month and a half. And she finally adds me and we get to chatting. And then I invite her up to Ohio to be my date for the wedding Labor Day weekend. And this cute old couple at the wedding comes up to us, or goes up to her. I think I was probably at the bar. Goes up to her and says, how long have you guys been together? She's like,
it's our first date.
It's our first date.
And they're like, really? We're like, yeah, it was a lot of fun. We just hit it off.
Yeah. So fast forward, I went out to Florida to see her. She came back to Ohio. Next thing you know, Thanksgiving weekend, I moved to Florida and the rest is history. So
that's that.
That's that. That's our life story.
And
soccer
then as
is
far
much
as
longer.
Soccer, yeah. So I have been a national referee since
2012.
2012. I need him for my dates.
I'm her executive assistant.
For many years, I've been able to maintain that status despite being pregnant every couple of years, the last few years. But some of you may know I took the fitness test pregnant, actually. I was 22 weeks pregnant when I took it at national camp. I had no intentions of taking it, but there was another female referee who was going to take it by herself. So I was like, hey, I can run it with you. Like I've done it as of late. And Rick Eddy was like, this is a liability. I'm like, it's fine. I do it all the time. So I ended up running it. So the running joke at national camp, when I showed up a couple of years later and I was like 36 weeks pregnant, they're like, you're going to run it? And I'm like, absolutely not. I'm 36 weeks pregnant. No, there's a lot different between 22 and 36. But anyway, so I've been able to maintain that status, which was challenging. It's had its ups and downs. When I came back from having Piper, I was 3 months after postpartum and was able to fitness test, was excited for the season ahead, and then actually had an accident. I had a jet ski accident. Chris ran me over with a jet ski. So I was in the ICU for a week, so I had an injury, so that set me off pretty much the entire year because by the time I got back on the field, it was kind of a wash. So I've had some tumultuous years, but I'm thrilled to be back on the pitch and being at a high capacity that I am now. I did the NCAA Division I National Championship last year. It was an amazing game in San Jose. They said it was one for the ages, and it certainly was. It was an exciting match to be a part of, and an all-female, first-time all-female crew on the field for an NCAA Division I final. So that was really cool. And then just recently was in Utah for the NWSL championships, what was it? Challenger Cup is how we called it. Thank you. And I was on the final of that match as well, which was cool as the fourth official. So just got out of the bubble, very similar to you, Jeremy, experiencing that. So I was there for 30 days.
Hold on. Who took more tests?
Probably you guys, because you guys took them every other day, right?
Every other day and the day before a game. I took 30 tests in 43 days.
Goodness. So I think I came home with 18 total. So we did we had to do 3 days prior to any game. We were supposed to do them after, but for some reason I guess we didn't, because we just doing them before was sufficient. So, but I did have to take 4 tests before I left, because I just happened to test in Orlando facility with the Orlando team, and they had a handful that tested positive. As a result, the league held me from going to the tournament. And so I was held back and had to take a few other extra tests before I was able to depart. All of mine were negative, but I was just at risk because I was at the facility. So that was unfortunate, but that is the lives we live in COVID. But I just took another post test and getting ready. I have a USL game this weekend. I'm super excited about at the Rowdies, just down the street actually from here. And then have a couple other traveling USL games on the map. So I'm excited to be back on the pitch. Passed the men's fitness test. This is time 2 in a row. So excited about that. I have ambitions. I'd love to take Chris's job, is what I tell him. He needs to move aside so I can take his job. My hope is I'd love to officiate in MLS. So
you can run him over with the jet ski.
I'm going to be full-time Mr. Mom.
Considered it. I've considered it. But no, it's been really cool. It's been cool to see kind of our careers kind of ebb and flow as they have. You know, luckily, I'll say luckily because I guess that's the right term. You know, Chris was out injured this year. He had surgery. So he wasn't even really a viable option to go to the MLS tournament, because I don't know what we would have done if I had the offer to go to NWSL and he had the offer to go to MLS. It would have been a matter of whose career was more important. And then we probably would have ended up in a very heated debate about that. But no, it worked out, right? So this year he was able to stay home, and we had family come and help support with the kids, and his mom came and my mom came and his sister came. So he had lots of help, but he stayed home with the kids while I was able to go for 30 days to NWSL and be in that bubble. 30 days total. So that was that. But I would say, you know, years prior, Chris's career has kind of taken the centerfold, right? And so we've kind of had this ebb and flow, and we've been respectful of that. And that's kind of what's made this work. And he's acknowledged that I've had some opportunities to do some international assignments. I had a chance last year to do an international tournament and got invited this year before COVID happened. And we just took acknowledgement that that was an opportunity that we were going to try and make happen for me. And so this year I was a marketing professional, and I took a year off and started to work for NYSOA as our managing director. So helping in the collegiate area to help build and elevate our work for NYSOA. And hopefully you guys have seen some of that work and some of the great webinars that we've done, but it's been awesome to be a part of that team and really be 100% focused in soccer, which I've never done before. And it's been really cool, because before I was juggling being a mom and a working professional and you know, trying to do soccer as well. And, you know, as you guys know, you really have to be a student of the game when you get to a certain level, and you have to be watching games continuously and, you know, challenging each other on clips, which we do all the time. And, you know, you really have to be fully embedded to get to that next level, which I hope to get to one day. So
She doesn't like my feedback sometimes. That's
he
okay.
doesn't like mine.
And that's okay. That's what makes us better.
I would imagine, I mean, with some of the questions, it's not every game is a, hey, good job and move along, right?
Oh, no.
It's never.
I don't think we've ever had one of those.
Yeah.
If you've ever had one of those, tell me what it's like.
Yeah.
Yeah,
No, I think, you know, between us, like, we are our biggest critics, right?
Yes.
I could come off and my assessor's like, great job, here are some areas. And then Chris challenges me with 10 other clips, you know, what about here? And it could be the smallest things as far as positioning and movement. Why did you take 3 negative steps here, right? Like, here's an option to go lateral, and you could have been in a better position for the next step, right? And while it wasn't game critical, right, it's those small things that are going to help me get to, you know, the next game and get the next decision right when I need to, right? Or, you know, we'll talk about positioning, and he's like, why weren't you a little bit to the left? If this ends up being a handling situation in the area, you can't really see this defender, this side of his arm, right? And I'm like, oh crap, didn't think about that, right? So he's always challenging me. And then he thinks he's amazing, and I have to remind him every now and then that he's not.
She reminds me all the time. She's watched every single one of my 171 regular season games, and she always has feedback. There's never been just a good job, you were great. Like, it might be a good job, but how about these 5 things. So
Yep.
every time, and that's fine. Like, that's great. That's what makes us better.
Yeah, we are our worst critics for sure.
Yeah. And for those of you, Tori was actually the referee on my preseason game this year down in Florida.
He was.
Out and observed, and at the taking of a corner kick behind me, Chris says, "Ask her why she's taking that position on a corner kick." So it's literally live game feedback.
I remember. I remember.
Sounds
So
about
yes, there is the feedback for sure.
right. And you know, sometimes we say we're like super critical, right? So like we both mentor, we do it quite a bit, and people will be like, wow, they're really tough. But we're tough because we want everyone to be better, right? And we're tough on ourselves, we're tough on each other, and we do it with the biggest heart, right? You know, I expect that of Chris. If he ever told me good job and just patted me on the back, I'd be like, what? Like, I would expect more. I want him to pay attention more and give me that tough feedback, because that's what's going to make us better, you know? And I think, you know, for all of us out there, if you are not coming off of a game and self-reflecting and finding something you can learn from, then we're not doing a job of trying to get better. You know, you can't walk off the field and be like, that was excellent. I was amazing. I did such a great job. And you probably did, but there was probably something you could have done better. Like, how could I have handled that situation with that coach differently, or that player, or that incident with the yellow card, or, you know, what have you.
For sure. And I mean, to piggyback off that, I get that a lot of, you're from South Dakota. How did you get to the league? You know, and well, I had a big group of people that we never had the, hey, good game and carry on your way, right?
Right.
Everything, you know, check out your mechanics, or look at your positioning, or communication, or game had nothing in it, but there's plenty to find to fine tune it. And the people weren't at that level, but they knew what to look for, so they gave me the feedback. So
right. And imagine if we all held each other to a higher standard, right? Like, I hear guys all the time and they're like, well, you know, this ref let this happen. I'm like, so why don't we tell each other that feedback, right? Why don't we give you know, each other feedback during halftime and after games, like we should be? You know, you're, as in, you know, someone on a crew, you can see a referee and give them feedback, and that's how we all get better. You know, we can't be afraid, no matter what your badge says, right? Like, it doesn't matter if your grade is higher or lower. I always encourage my team, like, give me feedback, whatever it is. You know, if you think I'm calling it too tight, if you think I'm calling it too loose, let me know, you know? What other questions do you have? We can keep rambling. We're good at that.
Yeah. Have you done this before?
All the time.
As far as NYSOA stuff, with, you know, obviously everything going on, college, cancellations of seasons, all that kind of stuff. Is there any information from NYSOA that they're willing to provide, or that they can offer?
Yeah.
Anything like that?
Yeah, it's an evolving situation, right? We've been cautious not to come out and repost everything that every conference has said, because it's a bit disheartening, right, at times. But I think at the end of the day, we're still waiting a lot of information, right? Conferences are still determining what they're going to do. And NCAA is kind of, you know, thrown the basketball in their court and said, hey, it's your guys' call, right? And so now conferences are trying to figure out what that means for them. And you're seeing, you know, every 24 hours, there seems to be a new notice and a new outcome of conferences and what that means for different sports. And just because someone cancels football doesn't necessarily mean that they're going to cancel all sports. You know, we've had those conversations as well. And I think at the end of the day, from NYSOA's perspective, you know, we want to make sure that everyone is prepared and ready for when they do take the pitch. Because just like with NWSL, I didn't know I was going to that tournament until 2 weeks prior to going. Right. And so we always have to be mentally and physically prepared to get on that pitch, because we don't know when they're going to say, hey guys, just kidding, September 1, we're going to play ball. Right. And we just need to be prepared for that. And that is uncomfortable because there's so many unknowns about that. Right. But what we can control is our own preparedness. Right. So are we physically prepared? Are you ready to go run 90 minutes right now? Right. Are you mentally prepared? Do you know the new rules? Chris is not physically prepared. Do you know the new rules?
I've been laid up.
They're different. than the new laws, right? There's differences between IFAB and NCAA, and it's important for us to know those differences, right? So we've done quite a bit from an educational standpoint from NYSOA. And so if you haven't had a chance to take advantage of those, I encourage you to. We've posted them all on our YouTube channel. So there's a lot of education out there. So if you're hungry and you want some information, go check that stuff out. It's important for us to be prepared. And the longer this goes, so let's say, heaven forbid, we don't have a season this fall and it goes into spring, like it's important for us to rewatch those videos and be prepared, right? Because come spring, we're going to forget all the information we studied this summer for the fall. So it's really important for us to make sure that we're prepared for when the duty calls. You know, when it comes to safety, I know a lot of officials have said they don't feel comfortable officiating this fall, and that is fine. From every conference assigner I've spoken to, Chris included, they all say that's completely fine. Just let the assigner know, just be open about that dialogue. If you are concerned about, you know, your safety or family safety, by all means, take the season off if you need to. Safety is number one priority, right, for us all, and that includes us, not just player safety, right? And we don't know what the guidelines are gonna look like. You know, will they test players? Sure. Do we know the frequency of that? No. Will they test officials? Probably. Do we know the frequency of that? No, right? There's going to be so many variables and unknowns, and it will be fragmented from conference to conference and what they'll require. So that's important for us too. Like there may be conferences where you're like, I'm just not comfortable with those guidelines. You know, it's different than working in a bubble like you and I did, right?
Yes.
Where everyone is very safe, right? And you're in a bubble, you can't go anywhere, you're trusting each other, you're testing every other day. So everyone is really safe in that bubble. When you leave that bubble, and I don't know if you've experienced this, Jeremy, but I've had a bit of culture shock coming out of that bubble. And I'm like, does everybody in the world not know what's going on here? So Chris and I joke, but I certainly have experienced culture shock. And so I have my own concerns about officiating this fall. I'm excited too, but you know, we have to make sure we're all safe, and peace of mind is important.
Yes, it was, I agree. It was an awkward, uncomfortable feeling when I got in the vehicle to go to the airport to come home, driving off the property out of the bubble going, is this okay? You know, like, and then getting to the airport, and yeah, it was a shock going in, you know, and then having 2 teams sent home, you're going, is this ever going to happen?
Yeah, I think it hit Tori
32
more.
days with nothing. So
Yeah, I think it hit Tori more, not so much when she left the bubble or when she got home, but the first time we went out. So like we went downtown to the pier last week, and brand new pier in downtown St. Pete. So everybody wants to go out and see. We went on like a Thursday, so it shouldn't be too busy. And we're really good about wearing masks out in public. The girls wear masks. They love them. They wear them around the house. And we get downtown.
They think there's like an accessory. Like they plan their outfit and they're like, and I'm going to do this mask with this outfit. And I'm like, we're not leaving the house today.
So we get downtown and nobody's wearing masks and nobody's giving you distance. And Tori's like got sweaty palms and is getting anxiety. And she's like, I can't handle it. I can't.
Well, to come from a place like a bubble, right, where everyone's wearing masks and everyone is keeping your distance and you only stay with your group, to go out in public and just see everybody out on the playground, nobody really wearing masks. And if they are, they've got them like shoved down their faces. They're not really wearing them. You know, when people are walking by us in groups and they're like complaining that there's not going to be no college football. And I'm like, you guys are the reason there's no college football. This behavior is exactly why, right? And so it was very eye-opening for me, having not been out in a long time, and just to see how everyone was kind of behaving and acting. And obviously Florida, we're pretty high when it comes to our rates of the virus. So I was also shocked about that as well. But hey, I'm getting used to it. I'm drinking more wine, and that's helping. But this
always
is
helps.
Right, always helps. We put the kids down, I'm like, I need my wine. But no, and then being parents and the decisions to put your kids in school and not, and our profession's different, right? And just the other day I looked at Chris, I go, do you have any concern that, excuse me, one second. Do you have any concern that, we send our kids to school and they come back with the virus and they give it to one of us, and now we test before we go to any game, so now we won't be able to work, right? So we'll be pulled off of being able to work should we test positive and have this virus, right? It's asymptomatic or not. And I was like, that's concerning, right? It's not like another profession where you just go to work, right? We are testing before any game, rightfully so, right?
Mhm.
But it could impact our ability to officiate. And it's a different world we're living in, and it's
Yes.
different challenges.
We do have Bryce has a question, so I'll let him unmute himself and go ahead and ask.
Go for it, Bryce.
Since we are our worst critics, should we kind of put that off onto the leagues too, that they should be their worst critics and accept some feedback from us?
In what regard?
And how they treat the game in general?
Give me an example, Bryce. I'm putting you on the spot. Give me an example. You're on mute.
Spectators yelling at referees, treating us really bad. Couldn't we put something back on them on their expectations on what they should be doing to counteract that?
Yeah, it's an interesting perspective, right? When it comes to spectators, and you might have a different perspective, but for me, it's kind of a don't touch scenario. When it comes to coaches, I think we have an obligation to hold a high standard, and I think Chris and I remember when we first went back to Ohio, everybody was like, "Why are they tossing out so many coaches?" And between the two of us, in the college game, we gave I think the most cards that the chapter had seen. But because we both hold a really high standard to coaches, and I think we all need to do a better job of that, because I think we give a little too much leeway there. In regards to spectators, I think that's a difficult area, right? And I think we need to maybe have some thick skin when it comes to that. All that to say, in a tight collegiate environment, right, there's certain things spectators can't do, right? And we need to uphold that. And there's probably the right channel to raise some concern there. And it's probably not during the game, but probably after, in the right channels to be able to communicate that. But I think others should receive feedback if it's warranted as well.
Yeah, I think, what you have to remember is one thing we always talk about in refereeing, right, which is control what you can control. And when it comes to spectator behavior, we can file a report, right? You can send it to the league or the competition that you're working. But that's really the extent of our power as officials, and Jeremy will tell you, because Jeremy and I have done a lot of games together, and I typically speak my mind on pretty much everything. There's plenty of things that rub me the wrong way, but we can talk about it at breakfast and we can kind of shoot the shit about it. But outside of that, that's kind of where it stops, because A, I can't really control it, and B, it doesn't do me any good to waste my energy to try to control it or try to alter it. So I think we just have to focus on what we can do, what we can control, and channel our energy that way, right? So we can go out and referee a game. We can hold coaches to a high standard. Spectators, we don't really have any control over, depending on, competition rules and league rules of where you're doing games at. Obviously, in Major League Soccer or NWSL or USL, we have no say in the spectators, right? That's a venue specific thing and a league specific thing. But maybe in youth games or amateur games, you have a little more say, or the home team coach can aid you in that. But outside of that, and writing a report and sending it into your assigner in the league, those are our options, right? So.
And I bring up the coaches because a lot of times the coaches, they're hopefully the leaders of the team, right? And so their behavior, if it gets out of control, bleeds everywhere onto the field and the stands, kind of everywhere, right? So for me, making sure that our benches and our technical area are buttoned up are really important, just to make sure that all the behavior of all the other entities are more easily controlled when that's the case.
Yeah.
What were you going to say, Bryce? Sorry.
Well, my situation here in Sturgis is I'm the assigner and I'm also the head official, and we try and do a good job of the controlling of that environment. But
Sure.
in some of our other communities, it doesn't happen in, and our youth referees really get attacked, but so do our adult referees too.
Yeah. No, and I think it's a good point. I think there's probably politics layered in there too, right? Because Now you're coming in telling somebody else, right? So there's some layers
Absolutely.
there, right? So you have to, I think, tread lightly just because of the position that you're in, right? But I think the best thing we can do is if we ever see a referee in need, is we help them, right? So if you see a referee who's being assaulted or being attacked verbally or otherwise, that we get involved, right? And we don't stand by and be silent, right? And I think sometimes just being a mentor or a friend, you know, whether you're in plain clothes or in an official capacity, but just making sure that we're there, especially for our younger officials. I think that's really important for all of us, right? I mean, I've had my fair shares of running off the field or being chased off the field. I've had several instances when I sat in my car and cried and said I'd never do this again, you know, when I was 16, 18 years old. And I picked up the phone, called my mentor, and he talked me off the cliff, right? And so I think if we can all look to be mentors to others in that capacity and help people, we've all had those games. We will have those games if we continue to climb and do, you know, these environments are not getting easier. You know, officials are not lining up to sign up to get in the doors, right? This is a very difficult profession. It doesn't get easier. They say you just get better, they say. But I think we just become a little numb to it, right? And so I think if we can rally ourselves and be a community where we can support each other, you know, people ask me all the time, how do we get more female officials in the game? You know, and the biggest thing for females is just peer-to-peer interaction and engagement and mentorship, and that's critical. And they say, you know, females are going to go get married and they're going to have kids and they're going to do this. Well, I've had kids and I'm still back in the game, right? But I have a mentor and somebody there who's with me along the way. But it's important that I think, especially for female officials, that we have mentorship programs available where they can work one-on-one with other officials, because we are peer-driven and peer acceptance for some reason. But that's a psychology discussion for a different day. But anyway, good question, Bryce. Thanks for bringing it to the table. Cool. Any other questions from the crowd?
Open season. Ask away.
Yes.
For Tori, and then kind of a follow-up for Chris. But as far as trying to help out for, you know, female referees, especially newer referees, is there something that you recommend on how to talk to them, make them feel comfortable? I mean, I'm sure a lot of them might feel, you know, intimidated by kind of a male or you know, somebody when they're brand new, kind of giving them advice. And then also after that, if you would have approached Tori different in a way that wouldn't have taken you so long to get her, but.
Reed, you are an observant gentleman. I love how you layered those questions so nicely together. Yeah, you know, when it comes to females, look, I'll be honest, we're sensitive, we're emotional, you know, we're slightly moody, just generally speaking, right? Nobody nod in acknowledgement to that, please. But, you know, generally speaking, these are the case, right? So as far as like how to handle, I think there's not one, you know, right way to handle females, right? We're all going through different experiences all the time, right? So I think it's just being there and being available for when that moment does arise, when we may need some support, right? And just knowing, hey, I'm here for you, whatever you might need. Do you need an extra game? Do you need this, right? Because a lot of times, you know, when I was coming up, it was assignments we couldn't get, right? And so females will get certified, we'll be there, but we won't get used, right? And that was a big challenge. And I think we're seeing more assigners using more females, which I think is fabulous, in a lot of different capacities, right? So I think if we can continue to provide opportunities for females and challenge them, because, you know, we're competitive beings as well, and we like to be challenged. We like a good competitive opportunity as well. So I think providing those opportunities are really important to keep our engagement as well. And then, like I said, if you can have a mentor, especially someone who's young and relevant and in the game and maybe even female, right? Like those are ideal. I know that those are rare things, but that's ideal, right? Because, you know, I was just talking with some people at Pro the other day saying, you know, the fact that we had an all-female crew on the final for NWSL, it speaks so many volumes to so many women out there that see that and say, hey, that could be me, right? So I think it's important for us, those in leadership positions, to continue to provide opportunities at the highest level. So when a young 14-year-old girl who's out there struggling on the pitches, right, and saying, gosh, this is really hard work, goes and turns on the TV and sees a female like a Katie Nesbitt running a line on an MLS final, she gets inspired by that, right? And that inspires an entire generation of females to say, I can. right? So I think it's top all the way down. And this is, I say from the perspective of the TV, but in your leagues, it might just be the final of whatever tournament, right? It might just be a showcase game in whatever stadium it might be, right? But to be able to see females working the games that they aspire to be at is really important too, right? So I think those things help. And then Chris, yeah, he sure could have approached me a lot differently.
See, where I went wrong was out of the gate, I played hard to get. And it backfired on me. So I ran across here at the tournament, whatever day it was, a round robin play. And on Tuesday night, which anybody who's ever been to youth regionals knows, in most regions, Tuesday night is party night, because Wednesday everybody goes home. So Tuesday night we're out, I'm at a bar. My first year in Major League Soccer, so I'm a big deal. Everybody's buying me drinks. There's a bunch of people around me.
He had a circle of people around him that were like, ooh, Chris Penso. Meanwhile, I'm on the other side, like steam still coming out of my ears.
She's on the other side of the bar, and I knew she was. And I look at her from across the bar, and she catches me. And then I catch her looking back. And it was all downhill after that. We got back to the hotel later that night. My boss was in the lobby. I dove into an elevator so he wouldn't see me. And then I had to stalk her. So I played hard to get the initial night, and it backfired. So what I learned was just be open and upfront in the beginning.
That's terrible. He clearly has no way to engage females, so don't let him.
I mean, she's still here. She's still here.
Sometimes I question decisions.
All right, so to keep going with kind of the fun topics,
Yeah.
each of you, your favorite or most memorable game that you've worked, and then if you know off the top of your head, one that you'd like to have back.
So I'm gonna go first because the one I want to have back comes to me very easily. 2 years ago, New York Red Bulls at Atlanta. I had like 7 red cards or some crazy shit. I think 5 of them got overturned via VAR. That was a game I'd like to have back because it was a national TV game. There's actually 2. There's that one, and then 2016 or 2017. Atlanta at Sporting Kansas City in September, I think, of that year. I missed a red card. This is before VAR. I missed a red card, and I was walking on water that season and was thinking about big things in the playoffs.
Dun, dun, dun.
And kind of stepped on my toes. So those 2 games are the ones I want back. You want to go? I don't know.
There was a positive question involved.
Well, I know, but do you want to give we'll give all the bad news first.
Okay. So I don't know what I would want to have back. I mean, if it was bad, I don't really want to have it back, right, Darren? Like, let's be honest, right? There's probably last year I had one match in Seattle where I had 2 decisions, and they were very gray area decisions, and I learned a lot from them as an official. The board that oversees the KMIs was split on them, but they ended up going against me in both decisions. So unfortunately, one was a deflection play decision, and I had allowed a goal to stand that should have been offside. I had deemed that the player had played the ball, and then they came down and said it was a deflection, but it was very close. It was kind of in that gray area. The touch was about 7 yards away. So in my opinion, she had enough time to react, and she opens her body and makes an attempt at the ball, but those above me said it was a deflection. So I learned a lot from that decision. And then the other one was a dog show decision, which also was super gray. Ball comes over the top, it's bouncing. But the learning there I took away was that if she hadn't committed the foul, the likelihood to have control of the ball would have been there, which was something I hadn't necessarily considered in dog show. So those 2 decisions, I ended up giving a yellow card, and it probably should have been a red card. I would love to have back now that I've learned from them. I think I would get them right this time. So that was probably one from last season that took me a while to get over because I was frustrated because other than those, I had a really good game, but it was those 2 decisions. So that's my get back. And then I'll go right into the positive because I can't leave on the negative and pass it to you. So as far as like one of the awesomest games, I would have to say was the national championship last year. It was super cool. It was unexpected. It was in San Jose. It was in an MLS stadium. So for my hopes and dreams of where I'd like to be aspirationally, it was just cool. And then it was pretty packed. It wasn't the most the most fans in a final. Lance still holds that over my head, but I'm just shy. I think it was like 1,000 shy of his 12,000. But it was a rowdy crowd because it was Stanford was in it, and it was in San Jose, so it was relatively home field for them. And then it was UNC was the other team, and it ended up being a 0-0 draw. We went into double overtime, and then we went into kicks, and it was a very dramatic match, end to end. I think I ran like 9.5 miles, but it didn't feel like that because I remember at one point, ball goes out for a corner kick, and I just signal for a corner kick, and I look up in the stands, and everybody just kind of stands up, and they just start rallying because there was just a great save and a great run, and I got goosebumps all over it. I was like, this is what we live for. Like, this is the moments, right? And for that small moment, I got right back into the game after it, but for a small moment, I just enjoyed it. And we have to remember to do that sometimes, right? Because the stress and the pressure of these matches is immense sometimes. And the pressure we're put under and the yelling that we have, whether it be fans or coaches or otherwise, right? And sometimes we just have to soak it in and take a deep breath and go, wow, this is awesome, right? And then get right back into it. But for me, it was that game. It was super cool to get back on the pitch a year after having our third baby, and to be at that capacity was just really cool for me. So that was that.
I've got more than one. I've got a handful
This is Chris's Rolodex of amazing
listen,
matches.
I'm not sure if you know, but I'm kind of old and I've been around a long time.
When you're a senior
So-
guy, I guess you have a lot of.
So I've got a handful of games. I'll run through them as quick as I can. So 2014, my second year as FIFA referee, they shipped me off to India on about 36 hours notice.
Pause. We had a 6-month-old. I was in MBA school, and
Full-time.
he tells me 2 days before he's going to leave for India that he
For
has
a
to
month.
he has to get on a plane, go to New York to try and get a visa so that he can maybe possibly be able to go to India for a month. And I was like, huh?
So all that happened, and I went to India on about 36 hours notice, and I refereed the inaugural game of the Hero Indian Super League between Mumbai and Calcutta. Yes. So that was a big deal. It broadcast in like 74 countries across the world. There were 75,000 people in the stadium in Calcutta. It was pretty wild. And then 2016, I did the MLS All-Star Game, and the reason that's memorable is because about
Pause.
Can I tell this story, please? About 8 hours after Joby was born, I got on an airplane to go to San Jose for the All-Star Game. And the reason she was born at 9 a.m. on that day was because we scheduled it because I had somewhere I needed to be. So,
So all of our kids like to bake extra long. So they've all gone over 40 weeks. So Chris is like, he's talking to the doctor. He's like, I have a game.
I've got a flight at
somewhere
6
to be."
p.m.
So we induced at midnight, which is the earliest they would allow us to. And then we had the baby. And then like 6 hours later, Chris was on a plane.
I was on
And
an
he still
airplane.
had his hospital band, which I thought was really sweet when he was doing the game, which I thought was
And
cute.
so I still have my hospital ban from being admitted when I did the game. And then 2017, this is a college game actually, NCAA quarterfinal between Stanford and Wake Forest. It was a rematch of the previous year's NCAA championship. It was at Wake Forest. It was the largest crowd ever at Wake Forest. It was like 8,500 people. There were people climbing into the trees behind the fence so they could see down into the stadium. Anybody who knows Wake Forest, there's a picture floating around on the internet. It's on a lot of the NISOA slides as a backdrop. Like the place was packed. They blocked the street off behind the stadium for that reason. And then one of my ARs was Ben Jackson, who was an orthopedic surgeon. It was his last game as a college referee. He was a longtime national AR. It was his last game. He retired after that game. He just so happens to also be the orthopedic surgeon who did my surgery on my Achilles in May. So
we trust him.
So we trust him. So those three are my big ones. I mean, I've refereed for a long time. I've refereed 6 college cups, 2 national championships. I've refereed in Major League Soccer for 12 years.
One as an AR.
Yeah, 3 national champions actually. 1 as an AR. My first ever was an AR. So I've got a long list of games. I've done a lot. I'm really blessed in soccer and refereeing to do everything that I've done. And fingers crossed, this heals up great, and I've got 10 more good years ahead of me with who knows what in store.
And if
So-
not, it's okay. I'll take his job. It's not a problem.
Pretty much.
You know?
Pretty much. She's over here beating down the door to try to get a contract and be a full-time referee, and probably kick me out in the process.
Just want one game. No, it's been cool. It's been an interesting ride for sure. I think we've had a lot of ups and a lot of downs, and we've had to support each other. And I think, anybody who's out there who's climbing the ladder knows that you can't do it alone. It takes a village, whether you have children or not. But just the emotional taxation that this takes. These games are high pressure, and even the smallest games out there, right? Not just big ones in big stadiums, but this game has so much passion involved in it, right? And I think the more we can have empathy and understanding for that passion, and not take so offense to all the emotion that this game has, like that's part of the beauty of it, right? But one thing if I were to leave a message, it would be, be human and show our human sides of ourselves, right? The more that we can be human, and I apologize to players. I say, hey, maybe I messed that one up. Maybe I didn't see that right. And you'll see their faces are so taken back when I do that, right? And no, you can't do that more than once in a game, right? You can't be like, hey, I messed that up and I messed that up, right? Like that doesn't work. But I think the more that we're human, like go up to a player and say, great shot. That was an amazing pass through. Like when you start to compliment and just enjoy this game for what it is, you'll enjoy every one of these games and the challenging pieces of it too, right? It makes it that much more enjoyable. But I think the more that we can just be human, like I've had Piper come on the field before and people are like, wait, you have a daughter? And I'm like, yes, this is her. And I'm a human and I'm a mom. And yeah, we're people too. Isn't this cool? Right? Or if you can share whatever your professions in or your passions are, right? And share that. I think, the more we can be human, the more people will accept us as being that.
I mean, that brings me to a good point. So every summer, except we're in the middle of a pandemic, Tori and I take the whole entire family to Region 3 youth regionals. And Roger Morton, who's the regional referee administrator, welcomes us with open arms and takes good care of us, gives us whatever we need, gives us 2 adjoining rooms. We bring our nanny to help, because Tori and I are both mentoring, or sometimes I'm the instructor as appointed by U.S. Soccer. And we do that for a reason. One, because we want to take the girls with us, so we can show them what we do. So when daddy goes to get an airplane or mommy goes to get an airplane, this is some of the things that we do. And then the second reason, and the most important reason, is to show people that you can have it all. You can have a family, you can have a career, you can be involved in soccer, you can climb the ranks, and nothing nothing has to be completely sacrificed. We make small sacrifices along the way, sure. But we take the entire family to regionals, and everybody loves it. Like people look forward to seeing the kids every year, watch them grow. Piper went to her first regionals when she was 3 months old. Right. So, and she's been back every year since. And we do that just so people can see, like you can do it. You can make it work.
When I was coming up, I was told you can't have a family and be a referee. And I think hearing that made me go, yes, I can. Why not? Darn it, And so sometimes it may take someone saying, no, you can't, to light a little fire. But my hope is that we can show on the positive side, right? Like, we've made, and I'm really happy that we have made regionals a family-friendly place, where now there are little kids running around in the background and everyone's comfortable with that. Whereas before it was very serious and very nerve-wracking and tense for everyone involved, right? And you would never, and when I was coming up, would have never had a child in that room, in that conference room, right? And now we do, and we've made it a place that's safe for that, because we know that if you want to be at the highest levels and be professional athletes, it's the whole self, right? You have to be mind, body, and spirit well, right? You can't just be like a really good referee if your home life is a wreck, right? You can't be a really good referee if you don't have good relationships with your children, right? And you're missing out on that. You have to be a good whole person all the way through, right? And that means maybe taking the kids on a trip, right? And having our administrators that absorb that and are aligned with that vision of maybe changing that status quo, how it's been in the past, Because that's how we're going to get more females in the game. That's how you're going to get referees engaged for a longer time beyond just a national referee, in my opinion.
Yeah. How many flights has Piper been on now? You tracking it?
I should go get her backpack.
She was in the 70s before she turned 1, and we stopped counting.
I remember seeing all those. Yeah.
Yeah. So on her little backpack, she has little wings everywhere. And we took her, I think, a lot more. Now with 3, we don't take them. We do that one trip, But outside of that, like
Now
you
we
know,
have three.
maybe
It's
one
a,
game
it's a little more expensive to fly.
and challenging, right? So we try and go like, you know, I would try and go, you know, to at least one of Chris's games to bring the girls. We went to your, what was it, 100th game? 100th game in Houston and brought the girls. So like those monuments, those big moments, like we'll try and make it as family oriented as we can. And it's memorable for that. Like Piper has been to so many stadiums and seen soccer from such a different lens than I think most kids have, right? Like the first time I took her to her first soccer practice, we're driving there and we passed by the Rays Stadium, which isn't even a soccer stadium. It's a baseball stadium. But she's like, Mom, take me to that stadium. That's where I want to play. And I'm like, okay, Piper, you got to start at the small fields. We're heading to the YMCA, right? I'm like, start here. You get good enough. Maybe you go to the medium stadiums. And then maybe one day you can play in a stadium like that. And she's like, no, Mommy, I want to go there so people can watch me play. I was like, what? This child. Because she grew up going to big stadiums and watching Dad and Mom, you know? So it's a different world for them. You know, do I hope they play soccer? Sure. Will I force it? No. I mean, do I want them to be referees? Not really, to be honest.
Who really wants to referee anyway, right?
Right? But, you know.
Crazy. We're crazy.
Right. But Piper was walking around here blowing a whistle today. I'm like, what is she doing? But it's probably in their blood. They'll probably end up doing it. And hopefully they're good at it and enjoy it, you know?
You mentioned, you know, showing people that we're humans. That was one thing I noticed in the bubble down in Orlando. There's players, referees, coaches, trainers, everybody's walking around and they're walking through the hall video chatting with their family. So I'm walking by Zusi and, you know, these other national team players that you guys have all watched. And I'm on a video chat with my kids screaming in the background and, hey, Graham, how's it going? You know, and he's doing the same thing on the other end, you know, so it's, I think it really helped because we were all in the same place, right? So it really helped to see how, oh, hey, on your day off, you play by the pool, you play volleyball, you know, you order pizza in every once in a while, that kind of stuff. So hopefully that helped that relationship between the officials and the players and coaches throughout the league. So we'll see. You know, they made some big Ishmael made that big stand with Bruce Arena, and we'll see if it goes from there. So.
We shall see. You've got to hold the coaches to a higher standard, you know, in all
Hold
leagues.
the coaches to a higher standard, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Good. We're right at about an hour. I don't know if anybody else has any questions. Or Chris and Tori, if you guys have closing comments, or if you have anything else you want, or if you get to enjoy the night together.
We're gonna go sit on the couch and watch soccer.
Yeah.
I mean, you've got an MLS game on right now. You've got 6 USL Championship games to watch.
Mm-hmm.
We're just gonna go watch soccer.
Sometimes I gotta put my coordinator of officials hat on and watch some USL games and scout the talent.
Yes.
Yeah,
There's a lot of new faces right now in the U.S. So.
Yes.
Right, and hopefully everybody's taking advantage of the opportunities they're given, right?
Yep.
This might just be it. You know, if you get a good game, you get to run a line, you get to, you know, have a whistle, take advantage of that stuff. You know, right now, officials are very much localized or regionalized, and a lot of people are getting some awesome chances, but take advantage of those opportunities you get. You don't know how you
just like you said, be ready. Right?
Mm-hmm. Right.
Be ready.
Right. There's few things we can control in today's environment, right?
Yes.
So focus on yourself, make yourself better, physically, mentally strong, so that when it's our turn to step on that pitch, we're not rusty. You know, we're not, shaking off the rust. We're diving right into it and we're focused and we know just what we need to do. You know, that's the best we can do. You know? But yeah, no, thanks for having us. We enjoyed it. We enjoyed reminiscing.
Yeah.
But if anybody has any questions or concerns or comments or wants to reach out, like you can always, I'm happy to share my contact information, our contact information. And, if anybody has any questions, whether it's, female recruiting or NYSOA or ACC coordinator stuff or whatever it might be, we're an open book. And
AAC.
yeah, right. AAC. Great.
Yeah, I know the big topic, came up earlier. I forgot to mention, you brought up Katie Nesbitt. you guys don't know, but she was originally planned for August, and as we know, she was plenty busy last night. So thank you so much for you guys for jumping on. You know, we look forward to getting Katie on sometime in the future and sharing her many stories and experiences. And
I worked a game with her on a USL match in Rochester. And that's the only game I've ever worked with her. But I remember coming in at halftime and she was freaking out because she thought she had missed an offside. And I was like, dude, it's okay. Like, just move on. But walking away from that game, I realized just how serious she took it and just the level of focus and attention that she put on that one call and that decision. I was like, this girl's going to move mountains. Like, she's just so focused and passionate. It was really cool to see. But obviously she's done amazing things, and it takes a lot to be able to get to where she's at. And it's a lot of consistent high performances, right? It's not just one good game. She's been in the league, what, 5-7 years, something like that. Yeah. And she's proven herself time and time again. And that's what it takes, you know? Good for her. Well, I'm glad you guys get to hear from her. Maybe I'll tune in.
yes, for sure.
Fangirl.
Yep. You're next, Tori. You're next.
I hope. Fingers crossed. Just keep plugging away. But thanks, Jeremy. Appreciate it, man.
All right. Thank you, everybody. Appreciate it.
All right.
All
Thanks,
right,
everybody.
thanks for joining.
Good night.
Bye.